Welcome everyone. Today we have a very special top meta big patch guide. Yes, right after the big patch, we're looking for builds and compositions that help us to go to top 4 to rank up. I'm sure lots of us have lost a bit of ranking, and this can be some of the best builds in the current meta to rank up. Firstly, let's look at the new Underlord element. Some of the builds are great with a certain Underlord, while other builds can go with both. So because of that, I'll highlight some of the Underlord talents and explain them as we go through the build. Let's get right into the build. The first build I found to be very effective in terms of ranked games and casual games is Insects and Hunters. With 3 Insects and 6 Hunters, it's great to have the Ace of Hunters as Medusa. With 5% per Hunter focus fire, that means 30% more damage on a single target, which works effectively well because Hunters tend to be in a corner that focus down enemies. Now, why is the best branch for Hunters Insects? It's because with Waver, Sandking, and Broodmother, you have one way to stun enemy. Waver is naturally a Hunter, and also Broodmother also slows enemy massively. If you cannot find Sandking or Broodmother, use Nyx Assassin at the start as a substitute. With the Insects, they will continue to surround the board. It's not star dependent, so you only have 1-star Waver, Sandking, and Broodmother, it will still work. The key is that Insects not only block single target spells like Marana's Arrow, they also do damage to the enemy. Pretty decent damage actually. They're usually top 4 or top 5 of my Hunter leaderboard in terms of damage. And on top of that, Insects keeps coming. So instead of chasing your Hunters that's far away, enemy just keeps killing spiders. They kill one, the next one comes, then they keep doing that. Unless the enemy really overwhelmed you, you can actually buy enough time to defeat many enemies this way, even lots of strong 3 stars. The counters to Insects, of course, is AoE spells, especially with a short cooldown with Bristleback. That's a big counter. The other branch options for Hunters as we transition can be Warriors. We can go into Heartless and the top branch. We can go into Scout with Medusa and Tide, or maybe Deadeye with Gyrocopter and with the Sniper. The Underlord choices here. We have 2 choices for those. The first one is Annie. We call Anisix Annie. She can focus on breaking the enemy for passive and alliance. The biggest factor for Hunters is that if enemy has armor or is a knight, we can't kill an enemy down, then we can't focus fire onto the next enemy. So if she has any of the talent tree that breaks the enemy, especially the little summon Hunter has the auto attack that breaks for 3 seconds, it will help the Hunter alliance to break down any warriors or any strong unit in the front line. Once the front line disappears, you can go for the back line. The key here is you might lack a bit of damage, and you can go with a Chaotic Hunter for multi-shots, and Despite All My Rage for the revive damage. If you position your Underlord nicely, the Hunter can keep reviving and be a source of damage in early game. The End of Medicine is optional choice because if you pick this one, you don't get the healing and you also don't get the Chaotic Hunter. So it is a trade-off for both 2 things. The cost is too high at times in the early game, but in the late game, that's 25% more damage for the Hunters, which can be super strong. As for Hobbind, we can focus on stuns, silence, and tanking up for the Hunters. You really want to look into the Molten Armor because per level of your current level, this gives you armor and also burns the enemy. Burning enemy gives you more hyped, and also if you went into the Keep It Secret, you get the top tier passive for Hobbind, which is the auto attack that silences enemy because his auto attack turns enemies onto fire, and those who attacks him also get silenced for 3 seconds. If you position him correctly, maybe in the corner, maybe next to a tank, you can take some residual damage and silence almost the entire team correctly. Your spells do fire damage, and lots of the other passives you have also do fire damage. So if that's the case, he can tank up with Molten Armor, and also he can silence enemies. Hunters are very squishy, but they do lots of damage. So if you get upper hand with silence, you can be very strong. Let's look into the Hunters build. Where is this variation? Here we have 6 Hunters, 2 Heartless. We have 3 Insects and 1 Demon. I have positioned my Underlord next to Medusa to allow for safety and also to avoid the patch hook. The patch is likely going to hook towards this way. Likely Marana will be hooked, or maybe Waver or Joringer. Those are acceptable because those 2 can run around, and the Underlord must not be hooked because Underlords are going to be crucial things in the mid to late game as they cast disable spells, buff units, and they can do lots of damage. Next up, we have the Troll Berserker Knights. Over here we have tested with 4 knights and 6 knights. It seems that if we go 4 knights and 4 chores, we have the availability of just going to branch into something great. We can look into dragons, we can look into scales, warlocks, demons, etc. The best branch for the knights seems to be healers, because naturally you can have dazzle for the chores and also Oni Knight. So you just need one more healer, which is necromancer, to be the best one, necrophos. If not, you can consider something like enchantress and add another druid. So that is optional. But if necrophos is banned, it gets a little harder, because not only he's a healer, he's also heartless. The Underlord choice also is going to be optional. N6 is going to focus on healing and breaking again. The healing part is because a tanky team enjoys healing much more. An enemy that deals 100 damage is reduced damage to your knights by 50%. They do 50 damage. But a heal onto the knight will do full healing, and a 30% increase on healing will do even more healing with a healing comp. With Hoppin, you want to deal damage, because most of your knights will be tanking up. Unless you have a 3-star Luna or a 3-star Chaos Knight, you will not do enough damage. So Hoppin is actually a great source of burst damage for the knights. Also, he'll burn them and silence them if you pick that route. For the knights builds, we have a few variations. The high cost healer knight usually consists of less of the tier 2 knights, because Chaos Knight and Luna do fall off a little bit unless they become 3-star. And in the current meta, it's more advisable to consider leveling up, not only for higher rates, more units on the table, but Underlord skills will be stronger as you go up a level. So if that's the case, it's harder to find 3-stars. And because of that, we don't have any of the tier 2 units except for the Witch Doctor and Bat Rider, which do have to come with the chores. The major source of damage will come from the Dragon Knight and Troll Warlord. That means we actually lack damage in the early to mid game, because those two won't be 2-star that early. That's why with N6, you should use her with the Chaotic Hunter for double shots and also for buff the Little Hunter. For Hogan, just go all good damage. And again, we'll avoid the patch hook with a Viper over here. The second variation is a full offense knight. We can't go past knights without a Sven, because with a Sven and 6 knights, you will do 150% more damage with all the knights. The key here is to balance. How and when should you use the Sven? Would you lose your armor? Basically, you will lose your protection as knights the moment Sven casts Godstream, so you're exchanging defensive capabilities for offense. My best test with those is that you need at least 1 to 2 3-star knights to make it worth it, because the base damage of the knights will be multiplied. A 2-star knight actually excels in tanking up damage than doing damage, because most knights have low attack speed. If that's the case, they're not benefiting that much from Sven. Sven's actually killing them because he casts his spells fast. So if you're in a position to have more of the 3-star knights, then consider Sven because you have higher base damage. That is going to be multiplied. It doesn't go with the damage from Sven. Next up, we have a very special mage. This is the Hobbin Boom Mage. First of all, we'll go with 4 Scrappies and 4 Inventors, with the HP doubled for all the units, and Inventors do scale with HP. We can set off massive explosions because we can have techies as Ace of Inventor. And this is optional, but very strong. Round 15, if you get Hobbin's Kaboom talent, and if you position Hobbin a little to the front, he's likely going to buff the one in front of him or the one behind him. If he buffs the one in front of him with super speed, he also dies, he will do 20% HP damage, on top of that 20% more with Inventors. That's 40% damage that has a chain reaction. So this is when you go the massive Kaboom. The best branch option for Scrappies are actually mages and humans. This gives us mana regen and also gives us more damage with Hobbin's burst spells. Other branches we can go with Assassins for more burst damage, Morphling and Queen of Pain, and also Bounty. We can go with Warlock with Alchemist and Shadowfang. The only Underlord I like to go with mages right now is Hobbin, because N6 is a healer and mages tend to be a little weak on the side of surviving. We can go with Annie for the Scrappies if we go 6 Scrappies for more durability, but in comparison it's better to have like 3 healer alliance and warriors with her instead of the Scrappies. So that's why we're looking to Hobbin for now. We focus on the burst damage. We can take Implosion, which doubles Hobbin's cannonball shots for the single target. It's almost 1 shot 1 kill with 3 or 6 mages at times if there's no one around. With Friendly Fire, Hobbin does massive AoE damage, The key is to survive long enough for him to cast his spell. And lastly, Afterburn is actually pretty good, because if your cannonball hits the enemy, and if they're ranged team, they tend to stay still. The more they stay still, the more they burn. I had a 2-star Medusa and a 2-star Draw Ranger and a bunch of hunters stacked together. Hobin shot me once with a 6 mage. It literally killed everyone within 5 seconds. I was like, you what? They did like 2000 to 4000 damage with one cannonball shot because of Afterburn. Afterburn increased damage for the units that stands in the fire. So the more they are, the more damage they do. Let's look into the scrappy variation. Firstly, we have a transitional 4 human Dragon Mage. Before we get to the 6 mages, it might be important to try to find 4 scrappies. If we don't have techies, we just use any of the scrappies for 4, because 4 is the magical number that all the scrappies gets armor. That's how it tanks up for the mages. After that, we want the dragons, we want mages, we want humans. We can go for 4 humans with Dragonite with Puck. But consider that it is still stronger to go with 6 mages and scrappies, so Dragonite is optional. We can still keep him because there's a higher chance of getting a tier 2, tier 5 item with round 35. Because I believe there's a 20% now with round 35 and the rates are even higher around 40. For the +1 that is. So, again, to add up, because we have 4 humans, it's actually great with 3-star Tinker. Tinker enjoys mana gain. Now Tinker doesn't have to worry if Crystal Maiden dies, there's no mana gain, because this is a passive for the entire team now. So Tinker can be the last one to survive and constantly shoot rockets. That's why we have Tinker to the back of the line. Usually we have him a little to the front to tank up and soak damage to cast faster. And once they cast faster, you can see Tinker over here is in the front line. So with the 6 mage comp for the burst damage, we have the techies, Tinker, Timbersaw, and Clockwork. We can consider the Gyrocopter, but that will take away the scrappies. So it's better to go with the scrappies as the front line. This time Tinker's in the front because we only have 2 of the humans instead of 4 of the humans. Again, we have a spot for Hoggin, and always be aware that we want a unit to hook or to be hooked by the patch. It should be a unit that is not critical. A unit will cast instantly when it takes damage, so Lina is the best choice here. Crystal Maiden on the side have similar CD, but Crystal Maiden actually freezes and stops the enemy. So we want to keep her alive and sacrifice Lina for now. That's my personal preference at least. The highlight about this build is that it does so much burst damage, most players won't be able to react. The key here is to find everything to 2-star to be effective. We don't have to go to 3-star, but if you do, any of the 3 stars here are very strong. Even Ogre can be great. Next up, we have the godly tank damage for Brawny Savages. Why are they godly tanky? Because 4 Brownies actually stack kills for all the Brownies. If you stack the kills early, they will benefit the later comers, which is Bristleback. Bristleback is a tier 4 unit and the core of the party. Bristleback is a Browny and a Savage, so each time he casts, he will gain damage, and depending on the kills he get, he will gain more health because everybody else have more kills on the Brownies. Now he will also contribute to the kills as he becomes stronger. The key with Bristleback is that you can run IO with him, you can run an Octarine Core with him, anything that helps him survive, gain mana, or have lower CD is actually really good. The best branch here is Druids with Savages, because Enchantress and Lone Druid are Savages and Druids, so they kind of get the double benefit. The other optional branches, we can go with 2 Trolls with Troll Warlord and Witch Doctor, or we can go with Hunters with Beastmaster, Lycan and Medusa, or maybe we'll go with more Druids and Warlocks. The highlight is, again, you want to get the Brownies to get more kills, because that is going to be the core for your later tankiness. Usually if you get a 3-star axe here, you're looking at about 7.5 to 8k HP. Just with 1 chainmail, he's almost unkillable with enough healing. And this is why you can go with NS6 build for archer or healing. Other than that, Hobin can go with supercharge or silence build. For the supercharge build, the attack speed actually benefits the Savages. If they attack faster, they gain more damage. And with the current patch with double HP, units don't die that fast. That means Savages gains attack even longer with higher attack. So supercharge can be effective because it serves 2 purposes. So Let's look into the Savage builds for the above build. Here we have the Druid Hunter hybrid. We spoke earlier about Savages and Brownies, those are going to be the core here. We have branched out to the Hunters and Druids because we had the liking as the Savage. This way we can have a Medusa for the core stun and a Disruptor for the control. This build does not come easily at the start, so you want to start with Axe, Beastmaster, maybe the Warriors, maybe the Bruisers, or maybe just something basic. Then you slowly transition into the higher tier units. So we don't start right off like this. We actually start with a bit of the basic units, maybe a Purge, maybe some Hunters. For this build, the IO can also revive. The unit that IO revives will have no cooldown once it comes back to life. So if IO revives Lone Druid, which tend to die a little faster, or if IO revives Sand King, they can cast again after they come back. On top of that, IO also buffs attack speed and reduce damage taken. So IO is the core for this build. IO can also buff Medusa, so it's really good. The highlight again is to find a 3-star Axe, because that will be one of the best tanks for the frontline. The other alternative is the one we have tested earlier. It's very strong, because this has basically everything you can want for this current meta. It has the Warriors against most physical lineup, it has the Trolls with Troll of attack speed, it has 4 Warlocks for the best healing. The Brownies and Savages are just naturally strong here because more HP, more damage. And on top of that, there's 2 units we can look for to 3-star, the Axe and the Tusk. The Juggernaut will be nice to 3-star, but if you can't, a 2-star Juggernaut is just the placeholder for the Brownies and the Warriors. Next up we have Mages. Here we'll be looking at 6 Mages. After testing, 6 Mages is actually surprisingly and wonderfully strong with Hobbin. We spoke earlier about Hobbin with Mages, and the best branch for 6 Mages is actually Humans and Dragons. With the Dragon Knight and also the existing 3 Mages, we can have 2 of the Great Alliance for very low cost. Not cost of gold, but cost of number of units. The possible branch for the Mages are Primordials, Druids and Warriors. The Druids Mages can still work, but you don't get the elusives off with Puck, because none of the Druids are actually elusives properly. The Warriors works because you can have Tiny, Conquer, and you can have maybe a Tide Hunter. For the Underlord, we have Hogan for the burst damage. This is very similar to the Scrappy Mage because those are the ideal burst teams or the burst choices for Hobbin. If we look into the Mage build over here, the first one looks into great burst damage as we transition from 6 Mages onwards. We have 9 units here, and the core units will be Morphling and Enigma in the front line because they can be a little durable. If they die, they can spawn a little Eidolon. If you don't have Enigma, a 2-star Tiny or another 2-star Morphling can also work wonderfully here. The key is to protect the Underlord so Hobbin survives, and also to have your Dragon Knight as the frontline off tank. The highlight for this build is that if everything's 2-star, you will do lots of burst damage, but if you really want to be stronger, a 3-star Morphling is very essential. The key is to not spend too much gold on rolling, because if you find everything to 2-star, you can level up again for additional alliance or maybe additional unit. This can be a Medusa, maybe if you're looking at Mages again against yourself, you can go with a Tide. If you want something else, maybe Arc Warden, or maybe put the Razorback. This is why we have the next part with Primordial Mages, the return of the late game king. It is very powerful late game, surprisingly. This time we don't have the Ogre Magi, we have Razor over here. We have added Arc Warden, we use Puck as a bait. Everything is very similar to what's on top, but this time we're level 10. The Primordials will also stun the enemy when they die. So what happens is, enemy kills Morphling or kills any of the Primordial, they come back as a little Eidolon, the little dude that goes doo doo doo. And if you kill the little dude will cast a spell on you. That's Manifest. Manifest will do damage per second, that also stuns you for multiple instances. And because you have Mages, they deal more damage, they also stuns you. So in return, you kind of delay the enemy from killing your Mages, and you get more spells off. And the Primordials are great because Arc Warden is a great item carrier. You can get the Maelstrom, you can get Bloodthorn, you can get, Scythe of Wise, you can get lots of active items on Arc Warden. You could even consider getting Mechanism, because that would duplicate the item. So any active or any proc items is great on him. Next up, we spoke about many of the existing powerful builds we discovered. This is a traditional build with a twist to it. We have the Unkillable Warriors. The Warriors can be 6 Warriors plus 3 healers as the core. The 6 Warriors are very good versus physical attack teams, because right now we have majority of the players running Assassins, Knights and Hunters, which all deal physical damage, and Warriors are perfect for that. On top of that, the branch for Warriors can be Healers, Heartless and the Trolls. Optional branch, we can go into Druids for the early game or Savages. Because the Druids and Savages are cheap, we can use them for early game, save up, lose less HP, and sell them for almost the exact price. The ideal, let me say it again, the ideal Underlord over here is N6, which is the ultimate healer. Here we don't need Hobbin because although we might lack a bit of damage, N6 with Chaotic Hunter can supply the necessary damage if she also go into the reviving of the little hunter. N6 can go with the confidence boost because with this passive she will gain hype faster, because faster hype means more healing. She is all about the healing here. We have the healers, we have her over here. I have tried with healer team before, even without the warriors, she was doing close about 15k to 20k healing. So if you don't have this spell unlocked, you could go with Despite My Rage to buff the little hunter. On top of that, Phantom Pain is something I really want to get into, because while she is targeting an enemy with Pain, which is a damage per second for 6 seconds, every one of her ally gains armor, and at level 8 they gain 16 armor, level 9 is 18 armor. And with warriors, they already have so much armor. Armor is always beneficial, because you can have scaled with Tide and Starter. And with this kind of build, if you're not taking any damage, the healing from N6 is so much more effective. Because if you were taking 100 damage in, with the armor you reduce that to 30 damage, and she heals for 40, you almost never die, unless enemies focus you down, or if you have a way to stop healing. But most builds actually more tuned into damage. If you look over here, the Knights team will go with attack speed, maybe dragons. Assassins will go burst damage. Actually, Assassins can deal with healing if you have 6 Assassins, because they quit and they stop healing. The Hunters does not have any way to stop healing, so the Hunters is the best counter to the Warriors. Depends who has the 3-star and who can survive for longer. The inside counter is actually really good for the Warriors to catch the Warriors off guard, but if Warriors can heal enough, and with a little bit of AoE, they can take down the Hunters too. We have 2 variations of this healing and ultimate healer build. The first variation, we have 6 warriors, Heartless, Humans, Scaled and Troll. This is a very balanced team, but the downside is this team does not do enough damage at the start, simply because most of the basic warriors are more for tank ability, less for damage. So this is when you want to consider some of the early game units that can be great. Maybe Ogre Mage, maybe 2-star Nyx Assassin, maybe Anti-Mage, or maybe just focus on N6 and get her to summon a little archer. So those can be helpful, and also consider finding a 3-star. Maybe this can be the Tiny, can be the Starter, but don't overcommit on the 3 stars. Yes, the 30% boost on N6 is actually very strong here. With 2-star warriors alone, you can actually soak up lots of damage. The downside is, unless you find a 2-star Troll Warlord, this build still lacks lots of damage. What we can do is to compensate this by leveling up again and consider putting on the Medusa, maybe a Gyrocopter, maybe something that does damage that can come easily in the late game. Lastly, we have the old school Warriors and Warlock. This takes another approach. Instead of amplifying the healings for N6, why don't we just have almost infinite healing? Simply because we can have the 6 warriors, the 4 warlocks, the trolls, the scaled, and the demon. This also helps N6 because we have demons on board. Over here, the only downside is we don't have a demon unless we go to level 10, because Doom is no longer a demon. The beneficial part about this build is that it deals with physical lineup, it heals for a lot, you also have a majority of the stuns on the board. Almost 5 of the units here stuns. Tiny, Disruptor can silence, Tidehunter AoE stuns, Conquer stuns, Witch Doctor stuns, Troll a lot of mini bashes with his Ace Alliance. So Pudge also displays the enemy and also kind of mini stun with a hook. So this is a great team if you manage to get 10 of them, but before you do, consider going 3 warriors, 2 Warlock, maybe 2 Trolls, maybe some Scaled, and build them upwards slowly. This super healing and disable team needs 3-star Shadow Fiend or 2-star Troll Warlock as damage in the late game. Simply because the range damage is better than melee damage. Melee units can be stunned, can be pushed over, can be disarmed, can be broken, can be disarmed, many things can happen. It's better to have your range attackers with best item and to deal the most damage on them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this comprehensive guide. I have spent lots of time since the big patch release to test them, to be testing on the casual games with bots or with lot players in the ranked games. I have had some great success on my iPad, on my computer, and just anywhere we're testing those. Most of the builds can land you top 4 fairly easily. The key is to control your economy. It's better to save up, sacrifice some HP in the early game than not having a streak. If you want to see how to run a win streak or how to run a losing streak in particular, check out our post list with how to run a losing streak with variety of builds. Because I feel that economy is so important in the early game, it allows you to roll for 3 stars and level up faster than most players just a few rounds earlier. This can make all the differences. Now let me know in the comments below if you guys have any particular builds in mind you want to check and see on the next guide. And if you have tested any really fun builds you want to share with us, definitely let me know in the comments, guys. Thank you so much for watching this guide. Hopefully it's comprehensive and it covers most of the good builds in the top meta. But if we missed any, let me know and we can look into it next patch. Wait, next update. Next guide. Wait, what am I saying? You guys know me. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you like this guide, please subscribe to YouTube for more guides and more content with tier list and with more builds to come with Underlord. Please also follow and subscribe to me on Twitch if you can. That'd be so helpful. Thank you guys.